Hi, welcome to Rye Historical Society's Happy Hour History, and I'm Debbi Toohey. I'm a board member with the Rye Historical Society, and I'm continuing our reading from Rye on the Rocks, A Tale of the Town That Resorted to Resorting by William M. Varrell. And just in case you might not remember or haven't heard, this book is out of print, but it is available at the Rye Public Library. So if you wish to take it out at the library, it is there in theory. I'm going to continue today where their chapters aren't listed, but it's chapter number 8, and it is Warriors of the Glorious Cause. And also, before I start, may I just say I hope you're having a fantastic Labor Day weekend. The weather's like remarkable, and how lovely is that? May you be enjoying yourselves in the sun, the surf, the sand, with your family, your friends. And with that, I will start our reading on page 55, if you're following along, of Warriors of the Glorious Cause, Rye on the Rocks. During the early 1860s, the life of the entire country revolved around the war between the states, and although not a battlefield, Rye has its Civil War saga. It was swept along in the excitement of the early enlistments, with at least one diary reporting that every home had its hero. Evidently, the local recruits escaped some of the discomforts of the dusty parade ground at the center by drilling and tenting at the beach. However, this dustless low ground proved to great disadvantage when an epidemic of diphtheria broke out, bringing to Rye a token example of the death and carnage which was to follow. In an attempt to combat the dread disease, Dr. Parsons ordered many civilians to live completely out of doors, but at least one raw recruit died on the very morning that the troops embarked for the scene of the glorious conflict. Perhaps the Rye troops were no more healthy than the average Civil War volunteer, but at least one source says that they were much taller than average, with there being considerable problems in fitting them into their uniforms. The local boys had gone off to fight the slave owners, but it hadn't been so many years since slavery had been rather common on the rocks of Rye. In fact, even the impoverished Isles of Shoals included 4 slaves in its 1784 population of 297. It seems that the slave ship Friend's Adventurer was in Portsmouth in 1778, with many of the Rye slaves being purchased at that time. The Genesis, the Wallaces, the Bracketts, and the Garlands all had slaves, and James Seavey is said to have given his daughter a black slave and a black cow when she was married in 1740. Cruelty doesn't seem to have dominated the system, but many of the slaves are said to have run away. There were also Rye slaves who were given to their freedom only to return to the homes of their former owners when the Guild of Freedom seemed to wear thin. Such were the slaves Phyllis and Caesar, who after a short period of freedom returned to spend their remaining years at the hearth of the widow Wallace. Job Jennis is said to have given his slaves their freedom to enlist in the Revolutionary War. But it wasn't until after the war that Colonel Benjamin Garland returned to Rye with his slave, Black Prince. Prince was said to have been a fixture in the tap room at the Garland Tavern, with his trust being illustrated by the fact that on 2 occasions, Colonel Garland gave him money in order that he might be able to visit his family in Rhode Island. The arrangement was quite successful the first time, but after departing on a second paid vacation, Prince failed to return to his master. By 1790, There were only 3 slaves listed among the Rye population as compared with 16 of 15 years previous. But although a part of the local scene for only a short while, they find their place in local folklore. They had been admitted to the church and cemetery, but evidently by the back door. The story is told that when the second meeting house was moved, the bodies of 7 white people were found buried beneath the belfry, and that of a Negro found buried beneath the back step. Although the rally to the patriotic cause was a rather general thing, there were many instances of the opposite. Fishermen were exempt from the drafts, and it is said that Rye's fishing fleet multiplied tenfold during the war. One local woman is reported to have awakened one night to find her husband beside the bed on his hands and knees praying that he might be a good fisherman. In discussing the war in camp and in later years, these come-lately fishermen were said to have kedaddled. Rye did not field any great generals, possibly because of the fact that her men were more used to being behind rather than on top of the horses. However, a number of men of substance did volunteer their services to the cause. It could be that he enlisted only as a result of being unemployed after the loss of fire at his boarding house, but Daniel Foss did serve honorably in the Union Navy. Glowing terms describe his wounds in his biographical sketch contained in the History of Rockingham County. Even if in an unglorious sketch contained in the history even if the unglorious truth was that his crippled leg resulted from the missing swing of a rusty axe while cutting fuel for one of the ironclad wood burners. Another of Rye's hotelmen in the war was Captain Toll, formerly of the Sagamore House. His record on the field has not been discovered, but it is known that he set up a recruiting station at Portsmouth, no doubt with great plans for the role of a glorious leader. A number of his men are said to have reported to Concord, but were sent home as not needed. Rye did have its authentic heroes such as Brewster Caswell, who fought in 13 battles and returned to be Sandy Beach's grand old man of the war. But in a rather cynical mood, we must not forget the town patriots who supplied the bounty to have someone get killed in their place. Also not to be forgotten is the teenager Marshall Garland. For some reason, this misguided lad of 13 brothers and sisters chose his lot with the Confederates. However, he was spared a painful homecoming when he fell on the field of battle in Florida. The war affected Rye in many ways. It had its dead on the field of Bull Run and the inconvenience of a shortage of white sugar. Many of the farmers were faced with the complete absence of beef and were forced to live on chicken and lobster. And a number of town belles were forced to postpone their courting. The early years were brutal to the hotel trade, but victories were a sure cause for a gay cotillion, such as the ball held at Mr. Weld's newly renamed Union Hall to celebrate the victories at Vicksburg and Gettysburg. However, the barren resort during the years of conflict, the succession of hostilities saw the return of but few of the reconquering heroes, and with them a resorting public eager to spend their new wealth resulting from the war caused expansions in business. Although so recently the anthem of the foe, by 1866, Dixie was once more a highlight of every twice-daily concert at the Ocean House. The time of peace had arrived, but Rye was to have a constant reminder of the war. The Isles of Shoals might have been constantly reminded of the victory by a giant bell which had been captured at New Orleans and presented to the Laughtons by Ben Butler himself, but was to be the budding resort of Rye, where it came the great naval hero of the Mississippi and Mobile Bay and gave his name to the new hotel that was to beckon the cream of the resorting public out to our rocks for years to come. Rye Beach had embarked on a great campaign. And that is the end of this short chapter. So again, may I wish you a happy Labor Day weekend. Hard to believe that we're there already. And may I just tell you, I had a great delight today when I was walking back from the beach after body surfing for a little bit. And that was that as I came around the corner to go up my street, this fabulous little fawn, which I haven't seen a fawn in several years, came dashing around the corner, went through my neighbor's front yard, went around through her landscaping, and back into the eel pond area. And it was just remarkable that I had the great opportunity to be there at that moment and to turn around and be present to be able to witness that. It was really exciting. So that finishes our very brief chapter of Rye of the Rocks this week. Next week, please stay tuned for 5 p.m. Sunday Happy Hour History, and another one of our board members will be reading to you at that time. Find us on our website at Rye, New Hampshire, historicalsociety.org, and check out our webpage, all of our listings that we have. We have all of this captured if you don't catch us live today, and it's a great pleasure to read to you. Again, I'm Debbi Toohey. I'm a board member of the Rye Historical Society, and I'm reading to you from our garage, and you can see a couple of historic pictures in my back here of different past relatives. And that's it for tonight. Enjoy your cocktail, enjoy your family. Happy Hour History. Bye.